The Drivetime Exchange on Net Radio, taking you above and beyond.
And yes, indeed, of course, that is where you are. Locked on to New Era TT Radio, Net Radio. As we welcome you to the afternoon Drivetime Exchange. And of course, this is where we hook up with none other than our journalist extraordinaire, Mr. Tony Fraser. Tony, good afternoon to you. How are you doing?
I am good, Sir Charles. How are you?
Actually, I'm pretty well, you know. Yeah.
How was the weekend?
Oh, it was a kind of up, down, you know, good and bad all at the same time.
There must have been some Mother's Day celebrations in your home.
Well, that's what I tell you. It had this kind of good and bad, you know. It get kind of muddied, you know, because of a little unfortunate situation. Even with my wife, she went out with the car to collect our Mother's Day lunch and stuff because I say, you ain't cooking for Mother's Day. And then came back home and packed up the car there, and before anything, the car catch a fire. Yeah, it was. So I tell you, it was kind of, you know, car just stayed just so and started smoke and started catching fire. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
so I tell you, it was a kind of mixed kind of Mother's Day, you know.
Yeah. You have quite a task on your hand there, man.
Yeah. So, as Tambu said, the journey now starts.
Journey now starts. All right, we have a journey that has returned to Trinidad. Remember, a few weeks ago, we spoke with some young people who were going off to South Africa.
Yes, I remember well.
They have returned. Unfortunately, a lot of them are busy this afternoon, so we only have one of them who is going to talk with us. But just before we get into that, let me inform our listeners and viewers that at 5 p.m., we're going to go to the former retired police commissioner, Stephen Williams, to talk about this whole business of the police commissioner. Listeners would know or be hearing on the news that the DPP has ended the matter, indicating that there is no real possibility of the matter going to court and the police being successful with the attempt. You know, the allegation has been that she acted, this is Commissioner of Police earlier here with Christopher, she acted improperly in terms of allowing licenses to go forward to a group of people who had no right to have licenses for firearms. But anyhow, the Director of Public Prosecutions ruled on the weekend that the matter did not have a chance to stand up in court, so that she has been exonerated from any possibility of being charged. And I understand that she took back her office today as Commissioner of Police, but she only has 3 more days before her term runs out, and therefore she's going to be in office for the next 3 days. My information is that she has already got back into office and will do whatever she has to do over the next 3 days. And then the whole process, it's a parliamentary process to select a new commissioner, elect a new commissioner. That determination is made in the parliament, and we shall see what will happen. However, from her attorney, that is Pamela Elder, the understanding is that she's going to bring a matter to court to indicate and claim that the commissioner had a right to have a hearing before she was removed from office. And we can expect the legal element of that to go on for some time. So that's the situation as far as we are aware up to this point in time. So that said, at 5 this afternoon, we're going to join former Commissioner, retired Commissioner Stephen Williams, who is an attorney at law also, and he can talk us through the whole process and what he thinks of how this outcome has been with regard to the commissioner. All right, we leave that behind now, and we go to a young lady we see on the screen there, somebody I know a little bit of, Viola Fraser, and she was one of the persons, 9 or 10 persons, who went to South Africa, and from all reports, were informed, got an insight into certain things that she will tell us all about. Welcome to the program, Viola, and thanks for making the time to chat with us.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for the warm welcome.
Give us your first impression of being in South Africa. I know you've been to Africa, different African countries before, but South Africa is a little bit different from all of the other countries of Africa, given the historical background, apartheid, etc., etc. Give us your first impressions on seeing South Africa.
From a very primary, the first impression I had actually was the landscape. The landscape is very is like unlike a landscape I've ever seen anywhere else. The juxtaposition of the seas, the valleys at low levels, and the mountains that you can kind of see from anywhere. Something that people talk about as an activity in Cape Town, where we went to, is to climb Table Mountain, climb Lion's Head Mountain. So those are mountains that you've heard of, but as soon as you land in Cape Town, you see them sort of from every vantage point in the city. So I would say my first real impression upon landing in Cape Town was the feeling awed by the landscape, that I had never seen landscape like that before. My first impression of the people, the culture, the vibe. We were staying in an area called Camps Bay, which is a sort of waterfront seaside type area. Someone might compare it to West Moorings in Trinidad, both because of perhaps the demographics of the area and also because of the actual physical location. So, for comparative purposes, that's the sort of area we were staying in, and that's where we were mostly for the first day or two. So just exploring that area, it was very different from other African countries that I've been to, in the sense that you see a significant amount of wealth concentrated in that area, from the restaurants to the houses to the people that you see. It's very much wealthy area. And then in exploring Cape Town, after we left that area, I went to stay at a hotel that was closer to the city area. It's called City Bowl
Okay,
downtown.
so Fiola, just sorry, before you go on, let's
Hmm.
get back to the flight,
Hmm.
getting there, or flights, plural, getting there. And that has been raised recently. You will tell us how long it took and so on. But that has been raised recently by the minister, the incoming minister of trade, because he's talking about trade between the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, and Africa, noting that it takes 2 days to get to South Africa, and that can be a serious hindrance to trade. How long did it take you all, and what is it? What was the trip like?
So it was probably collectively all the hours combined the longest trip I've ever been on. All hours combined. So my route was from New York, because I wasn't in Trinidad, but my cousins came from Trinidad to New York, which is 5 hours approximately. Then New York to London, which was going there, it was about 6.5 hours. So that one wasn't so bad. And our spirits were high, we were excited, we were ready to go. And that was sort of in the morning, the flight. And then we stayed in London for about an hour and a half. So of course we left New York in the morning. We reached London in London's early evening because 6 hours later, plus a 5 hour time difference between the US and the UK. And then we stayed in London for that evening, left at 11 p.m. on in the evening from London, and then we flew 10.5 hours to Cape Town. So what's funny is that I think that some people maybe felt that, once we hit the continent of Africa, we were close. But I think that going to the southernmost point in the continent of Africa, which is a massive expanse, um, I would say the majority of the journey was concentrated. So at least 7 hours we spent flying over the African continent.
Okay, so Africa is not so small after all.
It's not, and what's funny is I had just finished reading a book called Africa is Not a Country. So I think that kind of put that into perspective that it's a massive, massive place. And it's very true. Getting there and getting back, if there were more direct routes, I think it would be much more appealing for people to go to different countries on the African continent.
Yeah, so definitely it's something that we have to work on, both in terms of historical connection and as the new trade minister is saying, he focused specifically on a couple of West African countries, which he talked about with something like 420 million people,
Hmm.
420 million people market for
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago products to be sold there. And of course, for us to get other options in terms of our imports from
Hmm.
right now, we are kind of tied into North America and parts of Europe. But
Hmm.
of course, expanding trade requires connection. So clearly, Fiola, that is something that has to be worked on if there is going to be a booming trade between
Hmm.
the continent and the Caribbean. Okay, so we get back to the point where you were talking about first impressions and moving around in Cape Town, right? You
Hmm.
were in Cape Town. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I was saying was that the experience that I had staying in Camps Bay, which was where we all stayed as a collective, when everybody was around, versus the experience I had staying in a hotel in City Bowl, which is the downtown area of the city, were two totally different experiences. And I must say that luxury aside, I much preferred being in the City Bowl because there's where you could really be among the people. You could um feel the culture, feel the vibes. You walk outside, there's a market on the left side, there's street food on the right side. You can really feel the heartbeat of the city in the city bowl, and versus Camps Bay, which is where we stayed initially, which was fit for purpose as we wanted a house that was big enough for everybody, that was close to the sea. So just two totally different experiences where I think that you actually got to feel what Cape Town was like staying in the city itself.
And what was it like?
It was very, so I think when from our last program, my cousin's colleagues said that they were excited to go to Africa, that they were excited to have some of their first experience in what they perceived would be Africa, right? And I say that to say, for example, when my brother came, he kind of commented oftentimes that this is not what I expected from Africa. This is not what I expected it to feel like, to look like, to be like. An impression he had that was very much different when he went to Johannesburg. But in Cape Town, it just feels very much almost like a city that was manufactured, a city that lacks a lot of indigenous culture and tradition. And that is because, from what we learned, a lot of the people who were there originally, who were part of the city located in areas such as District 6, were forcibly removed from their homes before and during the apartheid times and relocated to the townships, to the Cape Flats outside of the city. So the city itself feels very man-made, if you will, and it sort of lacks any identifiable, unique culture, in my opinion.
So are you saying that that part of the city has not transformed to meet the reality of the end of apartheid in what, 91, sometime around that? So what's that? 35 years have gone by and that has not been changed?
Yeah, so in my impression, I would say no, it hasn't changed. And we did a tour of Robben Island, which houses the prison where Nelson Mandela was held for many years. And the tour was led by a political prisoner. And in his opinion, he's kept saying over and over, yes, officially apartheid is done, but the segregation, the separation of the different races, the different classes remains so prominent. It's so visible everywhere that you go. And that's something that I had noticed and got to notice even more when he said that. And you see, for example, you go to, uh, I was thinking about it in comparison to Trinidad, where you see there's a very large, upwardly mobile black middle class. I did not see that in South Africa. I saw, a big discrepancy, a big separation between the, white upper class and the black lower class that had been put into the townships outside of the city.
Hmm. So there is still a lot of work to be done to claim for any claims of equality to be meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not really different from anywhere else, right? But I think it's very, tangible and visible in Cape Town.
Mhm. What of the sense of apartness, the sense of hostility from the white Well, I will ask you about that subsequently. There are white South Africans, mainly people who came, the British and so on, and then there are the Afrikaners, the Dutch who came abroad, came from abroad and set up their own areas and so on. What of any hostility that you witnessed, experienced between the I have to say white South African of British origin and the local black South Africans? Does any of that still exist? Did you see it in the newspapers, in the media, anything at all about that?
Well, no, I can't say that I witnessed anything or saw anything or felt or picked up on anything. Um, I can't say that there was anything that I could tangibly takeaway, identifiably say that was a source of racism or hostility between the blacks and the white South Africans.
Okay. But you talk about when you went to different areas where the blacks are. Tell us about those areas. You've said that, the kind of made up community in that part of Cape Town. Where
Mhm.
else did you go and experience blacks
Um,
their communities?
so when we arrived and we were driving from the airport, our driver was very able to show us the townships on the side of the highway, which were originally called the Cape Flats, which is where they were removed and they were put. So essentially, when we went to a museum that sort of chronicled the entire event, what happened was one day these people who lived in the heart of the city, in the city bowl, in an area called District 6, woke up and were told, pack up your things because this is no longer your house. This is no longer your neighborhood, and you have to leave. So a lot of people's houses were by the next day were bulldozed, broken down, and they had to take up residence in the townships. Now, when we drove by the townships, they were mostly galvanized houses, houses with galvanized roofs, very small, very dilapidated. And next to those houses were some what we might call here HDC houses, which was government housing. Um, uh, that was woefully inadequate for the number of people who lived in the townships. But what our driver explained to us was that, it was an attempt by the government at present or the recent government to make up for this sort of um, townships that these people were forced into. But what happened is because so many of the people who live in the townships are disenfranchised, even if they were given one of these houses, they would leave the house, rent it out, just so they could have some sort of income coming in. And then they would live in the original galvanized roof townships. So, it's very clear, it was very apparent that the area that we were in, the area in Cape Town itself, is reserved, I would say, mostly for tourists, for the wealthy, and then the outskirts are for the lower class, the black people. Um, so there's very, very distinct areas for different people.
Mhm. I mean, how did you feel about it? I was going to say that it must be a sad kind of feeling, but I wasn't there. So you give us your impression, how you felt
Yeah.
about where the blacks were, living.
Yeah, I when people have asked me, what was it like? How did it feel? Whatever. I said, I don't think I've ever been somewhere where the history felt so palpable. Where you, as I would say, the vibes were off. The vibes weren't right, you know, and I say that in a kind of jokey way, but also in a serious way. Because you don't necessarily I didn't necessarily feel, at ease knowing that a lot of the activities that we were doing, a lot of the places that we were sort of built off the oppression of Black people. And the Black people, the South Africans, whose land it was originally, haven't benefited from so much of the activity that has taken place, don't benefit from so much of the tourism. Cape Town was recently named one of the best cities in the world. They don't benefit that much from that because, so many of the means are owned by these people who came and essentially colonized the land and took away all these opportunities from these people, right? So for me, it was kind of a disconcerting experience where I didn't feel, you know, of course I enjoyed myself and did all the activities and whatnot, but you almost feel like for example, when we go to a restaurant or whatever, a waiter, we felt so compelled, even if there's a service charge, just to give them a good and generous tip because not only were they so friendly and so helpful and all these things, but you just feel as though you don't want to go to their country and be pouring money into these restaurants that are owned by these white people or these vineyards or these places and not, bring up the people whose land, whose country it really is.
Were you all able to speak with any of the Black South Africans that you met about how they feel about the change that has come over, the political change at least, meaning that the government is black now, the ANC, the African National Congress, is in charge. Were you all able to speak with them to get any sense of how they feel?
No, I can't say that we spoke politics with any of the Black South Africans we encountered. No. And another thing is I will say that um, I think as Caribbean people we're very direct, very straightforward. We say what's on our mind. But the experiences that I've had in many African countries, South Africa included, is that they are not necessarily don't have that directness of, you know, to tell an outsider, oh, I feel X, Y, and Z about the government or the politics or whatnot. So the answer to that is no.
Yeah. I suppose it's an indication of colonialism, slavery, colonialism, apartheid, and so on, still lingering in the air. And so I suppose people don't feel as free as they normally would, as you have made the comparison between people in the Caribbean who can say what they want to say. In fact, you sometimes have to beg them to stop talking.
And
Sorry.
a funny anecdote just to add into that was that when we went to Robben Island, I think the recentness or recency, don't know what the word is, of the history was just really the most jarring part of it. And as my brother said, quite jokingly, but also quite seriously, is these people were being oppressed and thrown into prison for being black. And we was jumping up to Super Blue in the 1990s, So it's almost like such a juxtaposition of the two experiences. Um, and the fact that this happened so recently in many of our lifetimes.
Yeah, yeah. So we are talking with Fiola Fraser, who is representative of a group of 9 to 10 people who went recently to South Africa to experience the country post-apartheid. And you've heard some of her initial comments. I'm going to ask her in a moment to talk about the Robben Island experience, in addition to what are some of the other major experiences of being in South Africa. So Robben Island, the place where Nelson Mandela and a number of his colleagues were incarcerated. I think Mandela's term was something like 27 years on the island. You all were able to visit the island. What are some of your impressions of it?
Yeah, so a smaller group of us went to Robben Island because I think it was too troubling, perhaps for some others. But I think it's also very important to have experiences like that to understand the history. Um, and so we went, a smaller group of us, as I said, we took the ferry and we went across to Robben Island. Um, and what the initial impression was we were standing up in line, and when you stand up in line waiting for the ferry, there's, historical information on the wall that is sort of telling you what's the history of this place and what's the legacy of these people. And our initial question was, there are so many different the demographic of the people waiting in line was, so interesting. It was black people, it was white people, Europeans, Africans, us as Caribbean people. And when we started our tour, the tour guide was asking where everyone was from, and everyone is from a different place. So I guess it was just an early indication that the legacy of Nelson Mandela has stretched worldwide. And people came, of course, flocking to see where he was held and the conditions. But anyway, so when we went on our tour, our guide was a woman who was, I'll try to say it, but she was Hosa, so those people who speak with the clicking sounds.
Mm.
and so she was able to
Did you
teach.
all try any of that?
Yeah, she was able to. I just tried it again. She was able to teach us some Hosa.
Okay.
So, that was a very interesting experience. And, those people were, um, they were, some of the original indigenous people from South Africa, who were, prevented from speaking their language and, pushed to assimilate and all those kinds of things. Anyway, so after we sort of went on a tour around the island, one of the most interesting things before we went to the prison was they showed us the quarries. And the quarries were where the prisoners were put to work, doing mining, quarrying, etc., in very substandard conditions, with no protective gear, and they were sort of, forced to work for many, many hours, and with no, actual regulations or humanitarian conditions in place. Um, and so when we eventually went to the prison itself, our tour guide was a former political prisoner, whose mother was Hosa and whose father was a British man. Um, and so he said he explained to us his history from a very young age. He joined this revolutionary in the sense that it was a movement that promoted the rights of Black people and for Black people in South Africa to reclaim, their land, their rights, etc. So the experience overall was, of course, very interesting. It was very much that he was just explaining the way that the conditions that existed in the prison, the way that their thoughts and their spirits were suppressed, the work that they had to do. He actually had an injury. His arm was injured permanently from his work in the quarry, where, as I said, they weren't given protective gear or any sort of, humanitarian conditions. Um, and it was just altogether a very jarring experience. He took us around the prison, obviously showed us what's, I guess, for a lot of people, the most interesting part, which is Nelson Mandela's cell, a cell that's probably the size of a shower. And then he also explained to us the different ways, they would communicate and continue to communicate and try to have an understanding of what was going on in the outside world. Um, Altogether, very interesting experience, something that I think, everyone who wants to understand um, history and the way that these sorts of movements continue to be repressed by silencing the people who put forward ideas that are against the mass idea. Um, continues to be perpetuated even today in many places. So yeah, that was the experience in Robben Island.
Yeah. Was there an emotional pull just being inside the cell? I presume you all were able to go inside of the cell and have a
Mhm.
feeling for it and so on. Was there an emotional pull amongst the group?
I don't think, yeah, an emotion, I think people expected the emotion to be sadness, but most people felt anger versus sadness. And it's just so frustrating that, in such recent times, this um, concept that because your skin is a different color, you deserve to have less, or you deserve to be subjugated in a certain way. So I think the emotion was a lot more anger than it was sadness.
Mhm. Was it difficult to get to the island back and forth? I presume it must be dressed up, ironically so, as a kind of tourist resort now that people go back and forth, and whoever the state probably operates it, they make a lot of money from it.
Yeah, and it's we were actually laughing to ourselves that we're saying that black visitors should probably get a discount um rate to go to the island. But no, it's very easy to get back and forth. There's a ferry that runs multiple times a day. And all the tour guides for the prison are former political prisoners. So that I think gives it a very real impact. And our guide had no qualms about saying what he had to say. He was saying anything that was on his mind, he was saying. And for him, what he said that was very impactful was he said that, someone asked, I think, how come you're doing this? How come you're reliving and rehashing your experience here every single day? And he said for him, this is his healing, telling his story and telling what he went through and hoping that more and more people understanding this will prevent this from being perpetuated. That is his way of healing.
So he must be someone in what, his 70s, 60s?
Yeah, he was in his early 70s.
Okay.
Mobile, but with some injuries that he sustained from working in the quarry without the proper gear and conditions.
Mhm. So I presume all the quarrying work is done by now, and all the oppressive manual labor that went on in the period has
Mhm.
gone.
Yeah, and he was showing us a lot of the walls in the prison that they built themselves. The prisoners were the ones who had to get the material, build their own prison walls, fortify themselves inside of the prison, really.
Mhm. What a thing. Um, what was the feeling amongst the group of you all? What it was, 9, 10 of you all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was 9, 10 of us who went to South Africa, but only 4 of us went to Robben Island.
Okay.
Um, because the others, I think they felt that they didn't want to sort of, um, I don't know.
Awaken any feelings in themselves, I
Yeah,
presume.
perhaps, yes.
Right.
So, I think among us 4, we all left saying the same thing. We were very angry. And more so, we wanted to it's such a departure, as I kept saying, from what our experience was in the late 80s and the 90s, as Caribbean people. So, it was very much an awakening and very much uh frustration that this sort of thing was so recent.
You spoke, Fiola, about the social, economic, perhaps, experience of being in Cape Town or that part of Cape Town, which is occupied by the ruling, and I say ruling, not political ruling, but social ruling, economic ruling of the old class, the particular class. But did you all get any sense of what is happening elsewhere in South Africa, outside of that area of Cape Town? You talked a moment ago about Soweto, and we can see what is happening there. But perhaps in Johannesburg, I don't know. I know your brother went to Johannesburg. What was his um, commentary on what he experienced there?
Well, when he came back, the first thing he said was that was Africa. So I think for him, experiencing going to Johannesburg, and he did a cycling tour through the townships, which was led by a guide who actually was from the townships, who lives there. And they jumped on their bikes and went riding through the townships. And I guess while riding, he would point out different historical places and tell him about historical events. So for Jabari, my brother, he felt as though he had what he described as a real experience in Africa. And, it ended with a lunch in a place that probably didn't look so fancy or great. But, I think when he came back, he felt really enriched by what he thought was an actual authentic experience. And being among the people, going to a market, not feeling among the people.
Perhaps at another point in time when he's available, we can get him to talk about, he and others to talk about that kind of experience. I understand that a couple of persons that is, went to different parts of Southern Africa.
Yeah, so a couple of people went to Johannesburg, but then a couple went to Eastern Africa. They went to Zanzibar. So that was about 3.5 hours away from Johannesburg.
Mhm. Anything of significance they reported?
What they said, interestingly enough, was that it felt even more so than in Cape Town, such a juxtaposition between rich and poor. And Zanzibar, if you don't know, is a country that boasts of its beaches and, that sort of resort type experience. But for them, they said, outside of the resorts, you just see abstract poverty, really. And what was interesting was the day they left, the country actually banned using US dollars in the country and mandated that you had to use the local currency instead of US dollars because I guess that concept that tourism isn't serving their economy sufficiently because tourists are coming and not using the local currency and therefore um, it just their biggest opinion from Zanzibar was that there's just a clear distinction between the rich and the poor, and there's, no sort of in between.
Yeah. Very interesting. We know that there are growing cities and growing countries in parts of Africa which have modernized and are big cities.
Hmm.
You have been to a few of them,
Hmm.
right? But there remains, as you were saying, certainly in parts of South Africa, um, that kind of distinction between if you like, the well-to-do areas of Africa and those townships and villages in which, a whole lot of people, perhaps the large majority of people, still exist at basic levels. Yes?
Yes, sir. I
Yeah.
think that in a lot of places I've been to, it does exist, but I will say, in Western Africa at least, you see um quite a bigger middle class. You see there's a lot more people who are, as we might say, regular people. And yes, there's the uber wealthy and there's the very poor, but there's also that buffer of, people who are regular people.
How do you feel, Fayola, after the visit to South Africa? What are your feelings? Do you feel that you have left that behind you, or indeed there is much more to know and much more development in South Africa for the natives of South Africa, the Black natives of South Africa, that is?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot more to know, and I also only went to one major city, right? I didn't even go to Johannesburg, and there's of course Durban, Pretoria, all those other major cities that you hear about that I didn't go to. So I think that there's much more to know, perhaps, about what exists outside of Cape Town. And Cape Town is very much a, shiny, buffed up city that is made for tourism and made for tourists. So you'll find any kind of cuisine, you'll find, those experiences, beach clubs that tourists might want to have. You have, the everything you can do it as a tourist. So you want to climb Table Mountain, you can hire a guide and the guide will take you up, or you can take a cable car. If you want to go to the beach, you have beach clubs, you have all those things you can do. Um, so I would say that for me, the more that there is to know is about um what exists outside of Cape Town and also you know, what the sort of plan going forward is. What are the next steps for the non upper class, non-wealthy people? What is because I do know that a lot of them have left South Africa, and actually what we did encounter was a lot of people in service jobs, in taxi driving, Ubers, serving and wait in restaurants, who were Zimbabweans, who were people Zambians, people from other countries in Southern Africa who had left their country because of the conditions that existed there and come to South Africa to, work in these sorts of jobs to get an income.
Mhm.
Um, and for them, they had still, you might meet people from, for example, from whatever country who sort of integrate into the society. But for them, I think because the country doesn't necessarily have a strong Black identity, for them, they retain their country identity. They are very much Zimbabwean, they're very much Zambian, they're not South African because I think, in their opinion, there's not much South African to be. There's not a space that is carved out for Black South Africans that they can say, oh yeah, this is my place.
This
So that
is
was
this is specifically you're talking about in Cape Town, that part of the country
in
that you.
Cape Town. Yes.
Mhm.
That's what I'm talking about the whole time because that's the only experience I had.
Mhm. Well, we trust hopefully that in the other areas thickly populated by Black Africans, there is some movement from where they were originally. So the lesson perhaps, Fiola, is that if you want to experience South Africa in its true form, you should not go, well, not that you shouldn't go to Cape Town, but you should go outside of Cape Town to see and feel that reality.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that, if you want to go on a vacation and have fun and enjoy yourself, Cape Town is a perfect place. But if you want to, go somewhere and have experiences and really, get your feet wet in the country, I would say, yeah, go to Cape Town, but also go to other major cities.
So you've returned from Cape Town in South Africa. How do you feel now? Coming back to Trinidad, coming back home, apart from the coming back home business, how do you feel that you have seen South Africa, parts of South Africa, and especially the experience of Robben Island and so on. How do you feel that you've seen that and you've done that?
Yeah, I mean, going anywhere and seeing things is always an enriching experience, I would say, and the experiences that I had in South Africa just sort of add to those various experiences I've had. And the day before I left, I went to it is called the Slave Lodge. It's called Izuki Slave Lodge. And it is a product of UNESCO. It's a UNESCO heritage site. That's one of many UNESCO heritage sites around the world, I think. The castles at Elmina and the Cape Coast Castle in Ghana are also UNESCO heritage sites. And the purpose of those sites is to sort of bring awareness to conditions that were faced by Black people during the slave trade, during enslavement. So the museum I went to, back to the slave lodge that I went to, it really just spoke about the slavery that existed specifically in South Africa, that I didn't know much about at all. When the Dutch came to South Africa, and it was a mixture of different colonizing countries. So it spoke about that sort of slavery, and it spoke about slaves, that the movement of slaves throughout Africa that came from Eastern Africa to South Africa, for example, and the conditions that existed. They spoke about you know young women who were used as translators, for example, between the Black people of South Africa, the slaves, and the slave owners, because they didn't speak any of the same language. That's something I never thought about before. And it just spoke about the way that different traditions were developed, and the mixing between the whites and the blacks that has produced what's called, the coloreds in South Africa, which is, very much a topical matter, because it still exists as a racial classification. And for example, there's a very popular singer, Tyler from South Africa, who was speaking in an interview in the US, and she called herself colored. And there was a huge uprising from African Americans, saying, why are you calling yourself colored? You're black, this or that other thing. But they didn't understand, I guess, at that time. And what the singer came back and said, that's just what they call it. That's what they know it as. We have our own ways of referring to mixed people in Trinidad and the Caribbean. And So it was just interesting to see the way that those things, those words, those phrases, those identifiers have developed throughout history.
So, Fiola, we want to thank you very much for your relating your experiences. Maybe at some point in time you will get your colleagues when they're available to come and share, especially those who went into Soweto and experienced that kind of life there, to come and tell us about those areas. So thank you
Okay,
again for
no
coming
problem.
and chatting with us. And well, I can't say I'm going off to South Africa because 24 hours flying will probably be the demise of myself.
It was
So
almost my demise.
yes, so I'm not planning to do that at any point in time. Thank you very much again for chatting with us and giving us your experiences.
All right, nice.
All right, Sir Charles. So that's it for this part of the program. As indicated at the top, we are going to go to an interview now with the former police commissioner, Stephen Williams, who is also an attorney. And we're going to talk about perhaps the biggest news item of between yesterday and today. And that is that the Director of Public Prosecutions has, what is the right terminology, has ended the possibility of a case charge being brought against the Commissioner of Police, earlier here with Christopher, and according to the DPP, Roger Gaspard, there was little hope, no chance really, of the charge being successful against the Commissioner. And the follow-up to that is to drop the matter completely. And the Commissioner has returned to her office this afternoon, as reported to me by some reporters who were at the scene themselves. And she went into office. There are 3 more days before her term concludes officially. And I presume that that will be the end of that. I am only presuming. I don't know what the present government will do, but that's the end of the particular term. Whether she's going to be contracted for a new term, nobody knows at this point in time. But what we know is that her lawyer, excuse me, Pamela Elder, is bringing a matter to court to indicate that the Commissioner should have been given an opportunity to say her piece before she was removed from office back then. So, Chalo, check in the waiting room to see if we have Mr. Williams with us just yet. If not,
Yeah, well, I've been looking, but I haven't seen him as yet. I don't know if you want to shoot him a call, play your song in the meantime.
well, he knows he's a policeman, and I'm sure that, well, he used to be a policeman. He'll be prompt. And this time I asked him to join us at 5 o'clock. So we just take a little break, perhaps play a little music, and wait for him to enter into the program. And we come back in a moment to chat with Stephen Williams.
Okay.
You make me smile when it's your time. You make me laugh or hear me singing my favorite song. What's a payday? What's up? What's a payday? What's up? See my cousin baby, sing this job with skipping love and driving, striving love and running. Tennessee job with what's up? I say sebumnandini siyozijabulisa abo siyozijabulisa bese siyazinathela sishaye umjiko wabantwana abo mina ngithi woza baby what's up woza baby what's up
Of course, people, this is your afternoon drive time exchange with none other than Tony Fraser. When I see our guest has arrived, Tony. So once again, good afternoon to you. I think you're muted.
Sorry, Charles.
No problem.
I see a name coming up there that does not match the one Mr. Stephen Williams, who is a person who is supposed to come up.
Yeah, I mean,
Come talk with us. This person is to join us tomorrow. I don't know if he got the date wrong.
okay. All right. But apparently so. Well, let's wait and see if our guest will get it right.
Every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio, Powerful Radio. Join me to hear knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
People often think about wellness in terms of physical health, nutrition, exercise, weight management, etc. But it is much more. Wellness is a holistic integration of physical, social, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, financial, occupational, and environmental state. Join our host, Terry Ann George, a health coach, author, mediator, and CEO of the Institute of Health and Fitness, as she discusses 8 elements with several professionals within the various dimensions of wellness. So let's kick burnout to the curb for good.
Join Terry and George for Dimensions. Fridays at 11 a.m. on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
The mid-morning just got better. Join Sir Charles for the mid-morning mix and mingle, where good music, real talk, health, and family matters come together, and your voice is heard. Whether you're at work, on the go, or just taking a break, this is the perfect mix to keep you engaged, informed, and entertained. The mid-morning mix and mingle, weekdays, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Wake up with the Net Radio Breakfast Show. Rise and shine with Wendell Stevens and Richard Raghubarsing, weekdays, from 6 o'clock to 9 a.m. Start your day feeling good, energized, and informed as we tackle the biggest issues of the day, get you where you need to be on time, and keep you in the know about everything that matters. We bring you insightful discussions, expert analysis, and the latest updates so you're always ahead of the curve. Mornings matter. Your voice matters. And it all starts right here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio. The Net Radio Breakfast Show, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Wake up informed and stay ahead.
Please, Mr. Officer, use up your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Please, Mr. Officer, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. All these years you overport royal under training. Now you're graduating out the road. Use up your discretion. I said, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you shame off of me head. Time after time, citizens complaining over the radio about the citizens' brutality and only for ignorance. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you bother aim up on me head. Please, 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 Mr. Officer, Mr. Oh, Mr. Officer. Seam color red, seam color blue. Be careful what you do, cause the people love you, yeah. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you really hear my family? Use your discretion. Don't you look no reputations. The citizens complain over Use of your discretion. I said, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you aim off of me head. Time after time, citizens complaining over the radio about the citizens' brutality and only for ignorance. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you bother aim for me head. Please, 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 Mr. Officer, Mr. Oh, Mr. Officer, seam color red, seam color blue. Be careful what you do, cause the people love you, yeah. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, don't you really hear my family? Use your discretion. Don't you look no reputations. The citizens complain over the radio about police brutality. Please, Mr. Officer, use up your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Please, Mr. Officer, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. All these years you over Port Royal, under training. Now you got the outer road. Use of your discretion. I said, please, Mr. Officer, cool down your temper. Please, Mr.
All right, so we are inside a little late, but as I say, better late than never. So, Tony, good afternoon to you once again.
Yeah, good afternoon, Charles. It seems we had a little bit of a technical problem there, but I see Mr. Williams's name up on the screen, so that means he's there. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, you're muted, Mr. Williams. You need to unmute your mic. Nice.
Right, he's there in person now. Sorry about the technical difficulties, sir. And very happy and glad that you accepted the very, very late invitation to come chat with us. It struck me that we should do something about it. And I called you and you very willingly agreed to come. So we're talking about Stephen Williams, who is a former commissioner of police and an attorney at law. And we all know about the situation today. The situation on the weekend when the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, literally dropped the case, saying that there was no possibility of success with regard to misbehavior in public office by the Commissioner earlier Herwood Christopher. And we know all about that matter, about guns being allowed into the country, and some claim from the brass in the police service that the commissioner was at fault in doing it, and there was an arrest and questioning and all of that, and we have heard much about that. So we have invited no better person to talk to us this afternoon about all of that. Stephen Williams, former police commissioner and attorney at law. And if anybody knows anything about these two matters and these two institutions, it is Stephen Williams. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. And let me ask you at the outset to, if you like, give our listeners an appreciation of what transpired, what you can, of course, you were not there directly, but from your knowledge of procedure and all of that, what transpired with the arrest and the questioning of the police commissioner?
Okay, well, as you would have qualified it, I wasn't there, so I'm relying on some of the information which would have been in the public domain, which at this point at this point in time is not refuted. So I accept that that is the case. Um, it would seem to me from the information which is in the public domain that the police service was conducting an investigation into the circumstances of an approval granted for the importation of two rifles. Um, People describe it in whatever way they want to describe it. The description is in relation to two rifles. At the end of the day, there may have been some difficulty in proceeding with the investigation in light of the commissioner sitting in office and the investigator being, in simple language, subordinate to the commissioner of police. So I can't say if there was not sufficient cooperation by the commissioner or not. But at the end of the day, you do not necessarily need the cooperation of an individual if you suspect them of any wrongdoing. So that is well known, and that's why generally persons who are involved in criminality retain their right to silence, and you when you caution them, you're basically telling them of that right. And therefore, investigation requires that you unearth the necessary evidence to establish a case. On the face of it, and reading what the DPP has put into the public domain, it seemed to me that they had reasonable suspicion that the commissioner could have misbehaved in office. They were not at the point of having sufficient evidence to establish that case. And they proceeded to arrest the commissioner, which is a very irregular thing, because you would want to, the highest office in the police service, you would want to arrest the commissioner when you have sufficient evidence to prosecute the commissioner. What is obvious in this matter, there was not sufficient evidence to prosecute the commissioner. And we have had what flow from that a whole period of time. The commissioner was detained for seemingly 2 days, and she was in custody for 2 days, then released, the standard 48 hours type detention, and she was released, and they continued to investigate this matter, and this is not a murder. Yes. So the investigation took us from that point in time after the arrest, because I'm sure the investigations would have started since last year, but it took us from that point of arrest right on to recently, when the revelation was made that the submission was made to the DPP for a determination, a final determination on whether there is sufficient evidence to prosecute. And we all know the DPP did in fact release that there was insufficient evidence to prosecute the commissioner for any offense, including the offense of misbehavior in public office.
Yeah. So, Mr. Williams, let's go back a little bit to clarify something what you are saying. Are you saying that it is okay to investigate the commissioner or anyone else for some suspected crime or misbehavior in office, but surely in the instance of a commissioner of police, you would have to have substantial evidence before you move to arrest the commissioner for questioning. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying. This is most irregular, that you would arrest on reasonable suspicion without sufficient evidence.
Mm-hmm. And the fact is, something needs to be pointed out, is that the DPP gave the police service, whoever the investigators were, additional time
Yes.
to find the evidence, and still, in his opinion, the evidence wasn't substantial. So is that an indictment on the investigative capacity or procedure of the officers who led this investigation?
I would say a serious indictment against the investigators.
Right, right. And would you, I don't remember the officer's name, but a fairly junior officer was a person who was said to lead the investigation, but surely he couldn't take it upon himself to investigate the commissioner of police, could he?
No, well, to be correct, the investigation was under the direct supervision of the Deputy Commissioner Internal Investigation.
Okay. So that person would have instructed whoever the foot soldier, to put it like that, would be to conduct the investigation.
Well, the foot soldier would have been supporting in the conduct of that investigation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that would have been the normal procedure to go through. Do you think, and it was a point that was raised by Israel Khan in a statement he made in the newspaper some time ago, that even more so, a commissioner of police must be given some room and space, meaning that you have to do the full investigation before you can make any arrest and questioning.
And that's the point that I was making at the beginning. Having suspicion, and even if we consider reasonable suspicion, that is not the point in which you would seek to arrest a commissioner. You would seek to arrest the commissioner when you have evidence to establish a case. So you are at a position with reasonable grounds to believe that the commissioner has committed that offense with sufficient evidence to back it. And then with the guidance, because normally matters like these, you don't go on your own. With the guidance of the DPP, you will then proceed to arrest the commissioner, interview the commissioner, commissioner's choice to remain silent or otherwise, and then you will charge the commissioner. Right. And obviously, that is clear. When the commissioner was arrested, there was insufficient evidence to prosecute the commissioner.
Yeah. So we are talking with Stephen Williams, who is a former commissioner of police and attorney at law, and we are talking about the whole episode around, which is well known, around the arrest and questioning of Commissioner of Police Hereward Christopher, and all of the matters involved. I don't know if you've heard, Mr. Williams, but the latest I heard is that the commissioner is back in office. It is said that she has 3 more days before her term comes to an end, and therefore she went back into office today. I got that from a reporter who was at the scene. I can't testify to it myself, but that is what has been reported by the media in the circumstances. What I've been told also is that her lawyer, Pamela Elder, is bringing a matter to the court with regard to the failure to have the commissioner say her piece or have a representative, an attorney, to make a representation for her before she was removed from office. I think that determination was made by the Police Service Commission, and so that matter will be heard in court at some point in time. Let's go back, Mr. Williams, with regard to this whole matter of the police arresting the commissioner. As I understand it, the Constitution makes provision for the Director of Public Prosecutions to agree surely to this kind of arrest and questioning and so on, to allow the police before they get involved in it. I don't know if that was done, I am not too sure I read or heard anything about whether it was done, but is that the normal procedure?
Well, a matter like this, it will in fact be required for the police service, whoever is in the police service leading this investigation, to engage consultation and seek the guidance of the DPP as you seek out the necessary assessment of the evidence that you possess. So the determination is generally not made by an investigator to say, well, okay, I am satisfied I have sufficient evidence. A matter like this, they will consult with the director of public prosecution. I do not know at what stage they consulted with the director of public prosecution and what guidance and advice that they got. So I can't speak to that. But I'm saying the normal practice, right, is that you will engage the director of public prosecution, where a matter involves a senior officer like the commissioner of police. If you're satisfied that you have sufficient evidence to make a case out against that individual, you will consult with the director of public prosecution for his guidance and advice.
So that I don't know, we are guessing because I don't know if you know, but I am guessing that that contact was not made with the DPP before the arrest and the questioning of the commissioner. Is that a logical assumption on my part to make?
Well, well, you could make whatever assumption you want, but I will not make the assumption because I'm unaware, and the DPP did not, in his release, indicate in any way at what stage he was engaged in that process.
Yeah, but I would think it quite unusual for a junior police officer to make a determination to arrest the police commissioner before, consulting with the DPP and indeed consulting with his or her seniors in the service who may have made the order in the first instance.
Well, you keep on speaking about that junior police officer, but that investigation was under the direct supervision of a senior police officer, a deputy commissioner of police. You can't want it higher than that. After the deputy commissioner is the commissioner.
Yeah, I am saying the junior because when the matter broke, however many months ago, an officer was named. I don't remember the person's name, but his rank was low, I don't know, corporal, sergeant, or something like that, who did the actual physical thing. And I'm suggesting that he must have been instructed, driven by a real senior officer. Is that a logical kind of conclusion to come to?
Well, it is factual. It's factual because throughout this process, the deputy commissioner of police was in fact, quote unquote, the lead in this matter, supervising this investigation. So it is not about some young junior officer going out on a limb and just acting irresponsibly.
Right. Absolutely. That's the point I wanted to get through, that the person on the beat did it, but he or she was instructed by his seniors, because if you want to lock me up, you could do that, but the commissioner is a very different story.
Yeah.
How do you view the whole process and procedure that obviously ended up in the arrest and questioning of the commissioner?
Well, if at the end of the day, there is good reason to interview the commissioner of police, then so be it. The commissioner of police is another citizen, and if there is the likelihood that that person would have committed an offense and they have to be interviewed, so be it. All I'm saying is the entire episode is very irregular. It's very irregular. And throughout the history of the police service, if you reflect on it, an incident like this one has never happened.
Yeah.
Some people might go back to talk about Randall Burrows and the matters and whatever, but Randall Burrows was charged. It wasn't about suspecting something. He was charged and prosecuted.
Yeah. I remember very well him coming out of the court on the day that he was released and talking with us on the media, but that, of course, is a different story. Do you expect, before we go on, just to inform our audience that we are talking with the former police commissioner and an attorney at law, Stephen Williams, about the whole matter of the arrest and interrogation of the commissioner of police and the DPP making the determination over the weekend that there was no hope of any matter succeeding, any charge being brought against her and being succeeded in the court, so that she has retained and reoccupied the commissioner's chair. As I have been told by reporters who were on the scene, I was not there, but they told me that that is what has transpired over the period of time. I almost call you commissioner again. I want to reinstate you.
That's a very, very tough job. And at this point in time where persons sitting in that office are being arrested and kept in custody, I really would want to be far away from that office.
How does this, two questions here. How does this reflect on the police? Let me keep the second question until you answer this. This whole procedure, which came to naught in the end and impacting it on a commissioner who, according to the DPP, there is no evidence to support that she did anything wrong in office. Somebody who must have served 30 plus years in the service reached the level of the commissioner and being dealt with in such a manner. How does this reflect on the police service?
Well, I think it's very embarrassing for the police service. Very embarrassing. Police service, I would say, investigative capability is called into question. The organization is in simple language, tarnished by this event.
Mm-hmm. Which is, of course, not a good thing.
No.
Yeah. And the ordinary person on the street must be saying by now, well, if this happened to a commissioner of police, what about me? In the circumstances, that must not go well in the favor of the police.
Well, actually, I saw some interviews during the period of time that the commissioner was on suspension, where persons in the public actually said that.
Yeah.
If the commissioner of police could be treated this way, what about me? That was said by members of the public.
Yeah, and it's no secret that feeling is something that circulates in the population with regard to the police service. So they have a job to do to come back from that. But the second question, I'm going to ask you that same thing again. What of any possibility of disciplinary action being taken, not against the instructed officer who did whatever he had to do, question and arrest and so on? Do you expect, or do the rules make any provision for some kind of disciplinary action to be taken against the senior officer or officers who instigated this whole process?
Well, whoever is sitting in the seat of commissioner of police will have to make a determination whether this matter is one which should be investigated in that context. That I don't know what will be the determination, whether there should be an investigation conducted or not. So at this point in time, I would say I don't know what will be done.
But is it possible, given the rules and procedures of the police service for such a bad determination, putting it in normal language, to be investigated? Is it possible technically?
Technically, yes, it is possible.
Okay. And would you venture a comment as to whether you think it should be done?
I would stay away from venturing that comment.
All right. You're no longer the commissioner, so therefore you can't make a determination on that. Yes?
Yeah, but you know, and sometimes when you operate, I generally operate in I call it two capacities. I operate where I am looked at in a particular context, somebody who led the police service for 6 years, which is the longest period within what we can call the police service recent history. Yeah. And I look at things from the other side as private citizen Stephen Williams. So sometimes private citizen Stephen Williams would make a determination. Is this something that I would want to venture a comment on? And then I'll say yea or nay. And in this particular instance, that is where private citizen Stephen Williams comes in and says, no, I wouldn't want to venture a comment on that part. I would want to share my views, my professional view positions on the matter generally. But then when I bring in private citizen Stephen Williams, there are times when he will be guided.
But do you think that an investigation with the possibility of disciplinary action of one kind or the other will be good for the service in the circumstances? Here is a clear boo-boo on the part of the senior ranks of the service taking such an action. Should we just forget it and say it was unfortunate in the circumstances?
Let me put it this way. If I was sitting as commissioner of police, I would have gone into the domain of seeking to unearth any wrongdoing and make that the base to go forward. If we determine no wrongdoing, then that is put behind our back and we seek to build the image of the police service going forward as a professional organization, ensuring that we improve the capacity of our investigators so that they can in fact perform in the manner in which the country expects and in the manner in which the organization can be judged as being professional.
Okay. At another level, the same kind of question, really. Will it be good for the police service to have that investigation go forward as a matter of public relations? And I don't use public relations in the sense of a cheap flowery kind of thing. I'm talking about the relationship between the citizens of the country and the police service. Do you think that there is a need for, in addition to whatever investigation that may go on, that some effort is made to enhance the relationship between citizen John and the police service?
Well, I would give the answer that I just gave, because this question is basically similar in content to the one posed before. So the answer would be basically the same that I just gave.
I'm trying to be a lawyer like yourself now. No lawyers come to the issue from different kinds of positions. Yeah, but you would say that that would be the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel as someone who led the police service, and I don't know how long you spent in the service, must surely be 30 plus years.
41 years.
41 years. How do you feel about an organization that you served in for 41 years, led for, you said a moment ago, 6 years? How do you feel about this organization getting embroiled in such a matter with the head of the police service at the center of it, and at the center of it as a victim?
Well, I feel pain. Simple language, I feel pain. It has hurt me as a person who would have spent 41 years in the organization, led it for 6 years, have served in the executive of the organization for 12 years. That is no mean feat. For me, I still feel an obligation to assist the police service. Today, let me share with you. Today, I was in police admin building doing a presentation to the senior officers on leadership. I presented there on the request of the acting commissioner. Last week, I was there again where I presented on leadership to the executive of the police service. I feel an obligation. While it is not a legal obligation, I feel a moral obligation to continue to do everything possible to assist the police service as it goes forward.
How should the police service, the seniors at the top level? Well, we can't talk about Commissioner here with Christopher anymore because in 3 days' time, she would be on her way. I presume that the present government will not ask her to return in the ways that the previous government did. And that I'm not saying that that is political or bad mind or anything like that. Just as circumstances, of course, must make a determination, and she herself may not want to return into the office. How do you think she feels? I mean, you can't get into her clothes, but how do you think she feels?
Well, I if I put myself in her position, um, that that hurt, that hurt will be a lasting hurt. It will be a lasting hurt. And I can't even foresee down the road how long it will take for her to heal from that hurt. I know she's a God-fearing person. That is publicly known. People have commented positively and negatively on her utterances in relation to that supreme being Almighty God. But it will take a big heart from her to say, well, I forgive them for what they have done, and I leave them in the hands of Almighty God.
Yeah. She must have to draw on a whole lot of strengths.
Deep. She has to draw deep.
Yeah. I want to get you in trouble, but you're a lawyer and a policeman, and you could take care of yourself. So I ain't worried about that. The question is, do you think it was willful or it was just incompetence on the part of some officer? You're a lawyer, you're a policeman, you could take care of yourself, sir.
I think it's a question. If I was in your position, I would have posed. But being in my position, it is an answer that I will not give to that question. So I would stay, and if we can call it, maintain my silence in relation to the answer for which I have views. But as I tell you, private citizen Stephen Williams, this question, I think, touches on him, and I will stay away from venturing an answer.
Okay. Well, we want to thank you very much, I nearly made the same mistake and say, Commissioner, not to put you in trouble again. But any final closing comment on this whole episode and how the police service can be dented and how it can revive in the circumstances? You made a comment a moment ago that you were there today and before giving advice and so on to the leadership levels of the service and so on. How do they recover from this?
It is very difficult to make any speedy recovery. I'm impressed by the acting commissioner, Mr. Benjamin. One of the things I recognize is that he doesn't operate like he knows everything. He appreciates that there are many persons who are out there in the society who can provide advice and guidance and support, and he reaches out for such support. So I'm saying the service right now is in good hands. I don't know what will happen in the near future, because the Service Commission is supposed to make recommendations for the appointment of a substantive commissioner, and I think they have reached that final point. And I'm not putting in any special plug for him as against anybody else. I can speak though in relation to the time he has spent in office, and I think he has done a reasonably good job, and he has the country in his heart in a special place, and he has the organization, the police service. So he's a person of integrity, and he's a person who is willing to give his best. So I'm saying there is hope for the organization, but sometimes it just takes just a split second for everything to turn around. So I don't know what will happen. If the commissioner is back in office, it means that his acting will cease. I don't know if she's substantively back in office, because as I tell you, I was occupied today, went back home. When you called me, I engaged further. I took my grandson for training. That's my life, right? So I don't know what will happen. What is obvious to me, though, is that once she takes office, his acting comes to an end. And if his acting comes to an end, then the Service Commission, I'm just following procedure, Service Commission will have to make new recommendations to the Parliament for acting appointments to the Officer Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner.
Yeah, well,
So what happens out of that? I don't know what will happen out of that.
Well, actually, you answered the question I was going to ask you to outline. The procedure from here is that the Police Service Commission makes a recommendation to the Parliament. The Parliament...
Not to the President.
To the President, sorry.
President sends the notice to Parliament. Parliament makes a determination. And really, the House of Representatives against the whole Parliament. House of Representatives make that determination, and if government it has majority, which they do, the government makes the determination who shall act as Commissioner of Police.
Yes. Well, Mr. Williams, Stephen Williams, former Commissioner of Police and attorney at law, thanks for leading us through this learning exercise and awareness exercise about what transpired and how this thing is likely to impact on the police service going forward. Thanks again for being part of the awareness giving, as I call it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fraser. Do have a good evening.
You too, sir.
Yeah.
So, Charlo.
Interesting. Interesting, they're coming down the road.
A lot of learning there.
Yeah.
And a lot of good advice from Stephen Williams, former Commissioner of Police. And as you know, we're talking about this whole matter with the Commissioner of Police, Hereward Christopher, resuming I don't know if there's another technical term for it, but resuming her stint as the police commissioner. It's been reported that she has 3 more days left in her tenure as the commissioner. We know that she is over the age 62. I see reported in the newspaper that she was given an additional term and another a term, etc., etc. And with the change of government, it is highly unlikely, even perhaps with the same government, given all that has happened, she is quite unlikely to be given another term. And of course, she may not even want to be there again amongst people who obviously treated her badly in the
Very much so.
circumstances.
You know what
As
is
as the,
Sorry.
sorry,
What is interesting there, and probably should have asked Mr. Williams that. Seeing that it's just 3 days before her official retirement, what would really make her want to go back to take up the post for 3 days? What is there to be finished up? Is it like maybe a pension situation? What it is?
No, well, her pension would have gone through in the sense that she had her pension put aside for her when she got to 60. She must have even got her pension by now. I don't know the lady business, but remember the pension goes up to her age of 60,
Right.
and the rest was a new appointment, a kind of freelance appointment. I
Right.
don't want to reduce it to that,
So
but her service that she would be entitled for the pension ended at 60.
yeah.
And I am just going on the basis
Yeah. So
of
with, with,
logic.
with that, and you're
I,
going back for
yeah,
just 3 days. So is it
yeah.
that because it's just a show, so that the record show that, she was cleared and she went back to work, even it was for 3 days, and then she goes away? Because
Yeah,
it's going to create some movement now.
yeah, it's a matter of her finishing her term. She had an appointment until whatever 3 days from now, and she finishes her term. And I suppose it could be that the Police Service Commission may come in and say, well, you don't have to serve the rest of your term. But it would also be wise, and I'm sure that her attorney Pamela Elder would have advised on this. You have 3 more days to serve. Go and do it. Don't walk away from the job, because they could charge you after the fact for not
Right.
fulfilling your contract, 1 year, 2 year, whatever it is, that had to be finished. So it's a matter of procedure, I suppose, and it would be left up to the Police Service Commission to say, well, you don't have to save your time, as it were. She has 3 more days on her contract. Remember, she's a contract employee now. So she has the 3 days to serve on her contract to finish the contract and ensure that she gets whatever is coming to her at the end of her contract before she departs into the purpose sunset, I think it is. But as the former commissioner has indicated, and as I am sure that all of us would know, Sir Charles, this thing will weigh on her mind for a long time.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Yes, it
You
will.
know, imagine that you've done no wrong according to the DPP, but yet you were dragged through this business and humiliated in the worst possible way. Some junior officer questioning you about XYZ. And as the former commissioner has made the point clear, that the junior officer was really carrying out the responsibility given to him or her, we don't know who it was, by his seniors to go and arrest and to question the commissioner of police. It would be completely out of his place to have done that on his own steam, as it were. He had to have the instruction of his
And then
bosses.
you had the situation, as I'm reading this morning, as the DPP was saying that, the charge or the complaint was brought by a member of the SSA, and it's in my mind, I'm wondering, okay, so does that take precedent over who can bring charges against a police commissioner.
Well, interesting. I'm sure that matters will continue on that basis. But according to what the DPP and indeed Mr. Williams made clear, that yes, you can investigate the police commissioner. You can investigate the prime minister, the president. I was going to say the president. I'm not too sure of what the constitution says about the president being investigated. So I leave that for the moment. But surely you can invest the prime minister, the minister of national security. You can investigate, but to go ahead and arrest before you have substantial evidence. And that's the nub of this thing,
Yeah.
Sir Charles. Fine to investigate you. There's a complaint, there is something that has been raised and so on, and you investigate the matter. But before you arrest this sitting commissioner of police, you have to ensure that you have hard rock evidence to substantiate such an action.
And that is the part of the thing I don't understand, Tony, because even the DPP making his statements, when he was basically saying, well, yeah, you had enough to arrest, and but not enough to reach the threshold for charge. I find something is wrong in between there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as the former commissioner has said, and as I have said myself, we are not too sure as to whether when they went to arrest, they had got the permission of the DPP. Because if they had, then it would be the actions of the DPP to be taken into question. Because, Charles, what the Constitution allows for is the police to do the investigation, and when they think they have sufficient to make a charge, they go to the DPP and say, we have XYZ. Should we proceed with the charge? But the law allows them to arrest and question. But as has been said by a whole lot of people, when that is the police commissioner, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's a prime minister, sure, you can do that. Prime minister is not above the law.
Yeah,
but
and for that reason alone, I think that there should be some measure of discipline coming down the road. That should not just be left that way. Somebody has to be held accountable, because you can't just go on and tarnish people's image and because of whatever it is.
Yeah, this lady must have served 35 plus years in the service, and this is how she ends up without any serious evidence that she did wrong. That can't be fair. I'm sure her attorneys will make no bones about it and will ensure that she gets the kind of compensation that is required. But that doesn't help your inner feeling.
Yeah.
So, Chalo, it was good to have the former commissioner with us for an extended period talking about this matter, and we look forward to see what is to happen into the future. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk tourism in Tobago specifically, and we have a panel consisting of Dr. Oliana Poon, who is an economist with a special focus on tourism. And she is also I don't know if she still continues to be a hotelier in Tobago with her own property. She's going to be with us. We have also the president of the Hotel and Tourism Association. That's the individual who he told me afterwards that he was just testing out. He was trying to get in. For a moment, I wondered if I had given him the wrong day, but he said he was just testing. Mr. McLean, and he is going to be with us, and so too the businesswoman, Miss Haddad, Diane Haddad. She's going to be with us. We are trying to get a fourth person, but so far, no luck. So tomorrow, tourism. Chalo, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. And of course, people, this has been the Drivetime Exchange.